All right, everybody, welcome to the Fifth Dimension podcast. We are joined again by Letao Wang. Always a pleasure, Letao.
Good to
Such
see you
a
guys.
so
Hello,
good.
Tao.
Always so good to see you, my friend. And as we were talking about before we hopped on, we're always keeping tabs with your videos and what you're up to. And I'm excited to see where we go. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Likewise, likewise. Yeah. It's funny. A few days ago, I was doing a podcast with someone in Iowa. And
Okay.
I mentioned you guys. I said, I was saying if there were a conference this year in the US, right, I would love to visit, South Dakota. And he said, oh, South Dakota, it's beautiful there, blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah. Yeah. And I said,
Yep.
well, I did a little bit of research online. There are national parks, right? And a lot of beautiful nature and things. I said, it's going to be amazing, but, I haven't heard from the conference, in the US.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, but I think I told you I'll be in London for the London Tarot Conference this October. Yeah, so Europe
Gotcha.
for sure. Yeah.
I'll have to renew my passport.
I mean, it's worth going over there.
It would be. It would be.
We're definitely going to contemplate that. If it
Yeah,
does
yeah,
happen in
yeah,
Oregon, we will be there before you get there. Don't worry. So,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, yeah. I'll
yeah,
also
of
keep you
course.
guys posted if I get to go to the. I don't. To be honest, I don't even know they're doing this conference in
Mhm.
Oregon this year or not because they haven't,
Yep.
refreshed their website yet. But
Yeah.
definitely, I'll
Mm.
keep you guys posted. Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
we'd love to do it. But
Mm.
we're at a time where we were just kind of talking right before the podcast. We're in spring equinox. It feels like a lot of us, we have new beginnings. We're planting a lot
Mm.
of seeds.
Things are
Yeah,
starting to bloom.
Yeah, a little
yeah,
bit of
yeah.
early manifestations in a way. And I feel like there's a lot of new for all of us, which is beautiful. Kind of we're all on a very
Mm.
similar path, even though
Yeah,
all of our
yeah.
paths are unique. I mean,
Mm.
what are you feeling at this time, Latal? What's sort of been coming up for you, and how you're reading into these energies, navigating them yourself? What's
Mm.
that been like for you?
For us, right, in the astrology community, we believe the spring equinox is actually the start of the new year,
Mm.
not January the 1st, right?
Oh,
Because January the 1st doesn't really have any significant let's say, astrological movement, right? It's just the number. Numerology makes sense, right? 1/1, January the 1st. But spring equinox is the first day of a new astrological year. So that's actually the time when we think we should make our New Year resolution. What do we
Mm.
want to achieve? What do we want to do? What's our aspirations, right? Sometimes it's on March the 20th, sometimes it's on March the 21st, depending
gotcha.
on the year, right? And so basically, when we talk about spring equinox, we're saying that when the sun moves into 0 degrees of Aries in the sky. And because Aries is the first sign on the astrological wheel, and that's why we say this is a new year. So the sun starts from 0 degrees in Aries and it goes 360 degrees and it finishes at 29 degrees in Pisces. And that's 1 year.
1 year.
And
Yep.
so, yeah, yeah. So that's when we say, okay, let's celebrate the new year. Yeah.
Right. Well, what's interesting, Latal, is I almost wonder, like, you mentioned like New Year's resolutions. I've
Uh,
always been of the belief that I don't set New Year's resolutions in January because it doesn't
uh,
feel like the right time, to where I almost feel
mm,
like I'm in hibernation. It's not the time to really start new
Oh,
things, like
yeah.
kind
I
of
get that.
hunkering down. And it's like, I wonder if we
uh,
almost put this perspective of going into the spring with new
mm.
intentions and new beginnings, if a lot more people would even start to follow through on New Year's resolutions, start to bring about greater change instead of kind of
Mm,
putting all of that in the wintertime,
absolutely.
you know?
Yeah. So there are several timings, I believe that would be great for the so-called resolution, right? It doesn't have to be a New Year resolution, but it
Mhm.
will the celestial energy will really help you to make them come true. And the first timing is the spring equinox, and this is universally for everyone. Because this is a new year, the astrological new year. The other thing is your birthday, because your birthday is your solar return. And so, Evan, I remember you're a Capricorn, right?
Yep, December 29th. So I guess I can set New Year's resolutions
On your birthday. Yeah.
then.
Yeah, yeah. So you can do that actually, because literally
Wait
your
a
birthday
second.
is very close, yeah, to spring equinox, right? And Anthony, your birthday is which you're a Leo,
July.
are you?
Yep. July
July, right?
26th. Yep.
Yeah, you're a Leo, right? So you can also make your wishes, around your birthday time. Now, the other thing that I find very, very useful is that on the astrological wheel, this gets a little bit more technical. Yeah. So during the 30 days, when the sun transit your 11th house on your astrological chart, um,
Mhm.
it's great for you to make wishes because the 11th house actually rules our long-term future.
Mm.
Now, this really depends on your chart, right? Everyone's timing is different. And this has a lot to do with what time you were born. And so the house system, the location will be different.
Yep.
So yeah. And so if you have an astrologer and when you consult them, ask them if you can, where's my 11th house? What zodiac sign is on the cusp of my 11th house? And basically, we're talking about 30 days around that time. Then you can write down as many wishes as you can. Now, I would say probably not more than 10 wishes, but you can have as many as 10 to be honest. Yeah. Yeah. Because and I
I love it.
realized, yeah, I noticed that this is actually very effective. And this thing was also mentioned by a very famous astrologer in the States, and she passed away a few years ago. Her name is Jen Spiller, and she talked about the 11th house, making a wish thing, which I resonated with deeply. This is something I
Wow.
also recommend to our audience. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Well, it's interesting how like so we're going into spring right now. It feels like we were kind of talking about earlier, like it does feel like a time of new. It feels like the time to set intentions. And
Mm,
I just came back from, I was doing some travel and I was down in Omaha, which is why I couldn't do it over the weekend. But I was on the drive back yesterday. It almost felt like I was like a new person in a way.
mm,
It's like, wow, I
mm.
feel like I had some travel, a weekend getaway, like like a
Yeah.
celebration, and now
Yeah.
it's like, okay, stepping into the new.
Yep.
Here we go, and then there's like this sense of like rejuvenation. There's this sense of like
Yeah. Yeah.
vitality that comes with that, and
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm.
so to me, it feels like a beautiful, beautiful time to actually step into those new intentions, to step into start planting seeds, right? And
100%. Yeah. And
I feel like if people go into this time of year with that type of mindset, maybe
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
where they're actually going to start to see real
Mm.
growth, real change. I think that's why everyone loves the coming of spring. They get
Mm.
Yeah.
that little
Yeah.
vitality back, right? It's like you feel the warmth
The
of the sun.
spark, you know.
Yeah, there's a spark
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
comes with it.
Specifically, I would say this year is very, very strong, this energy, because well, of course, every year we have a spring equinox, but this year when we are having this spring equinox on the 20th and 21st, the sun is actually forming a conjunction with North Node in the sky. And this is a great thing because the North Node represents breakthroughs. And so
Mm.
when the sun comes together with the North Node, it's talking about walking to the future and growth and development, wish coming true, all these kind of beautiful things. But it also requires us to leave our comfort zone. And
Mm.
com
We were just talking
yeah,
about that too today, doing
yeah,
a kind of a he was giving me a reading about, some shadow work and stuff that maybe
yeah,
I might want to be aware of, and then me stepping through the comfort zone like you said,
comfort
and
zone.
and
Yeah,
just knowing that that's what's ahead of me, and being okay with that, and being
yeah, yeah.
happy for that, then it's easier to embody, rather than to kind of be in that mode, or in that transition,
Mm,
like actually
100%.
tune
Yeah,
myself into it, so
Mm.
yeah. So, and also, we have our the transit Jupiter in Gemini still. It's going to be in Gemini until June, actually. So when the sun around Gemini time, so we're talking about, early June, which is early, the beginning of summer and late spring, that period of time, the sun will also come to form a conjunction with Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is also, a very auspicious planet. It's again expansion, growth, opportunities, travel, all these kind of beautiful things. So this springtime, we're seeing a lot of these kind of auspicious movement. So it's actually quite important this year, and it doesn't happen every year, actually. Mm.
Well,
nice.
weren't we just drawing cards? And
Well,
so
so yeah,
we just drew from
Huh.
the Oracle of the Celestial Deities before hopping on here, probably about a half hour ago.
yeah,
Mm.
And we drew. All right, let's look at like the theme of what we're going to be talking
yeah.
about. And the
Mm.
card we actually drew was
This is
Jupiter.
Jupiter.
It was
There you
Jupiter. That
go.
Or
was that was going to be our major theme, right? And so I
Yeah.
think this really is all about expansion and growth and opportunity. But it's interesting because that idea of stepping out of the comfort zone, I feel like we all want to do it and we all crave to do it. But then
Yeah,
almost sometimes unconsciously, it can be easy to tell ourselves maybe we think we're doing that rationally,
Hmm.
but on a deeper level, maybe certain
A little guards up or something.
we have safeguards up,
Yeah.
we put up some certain
yeah,
walls, and it's like we
yeah,
don't fully go into the depths of the unknown that I feel like we always need to, or
yeah, yeah.
right. And
That,
I think breaking past those barriers can be um, incredibly difficult, especially if we're not continually checking in with ourselves and doing our spiritual practices and actually being honest and accountable with
Yep.
ourselves, like taking
mm.
like the idea of judgment or reckoning, right, and really
Yeah.
being accountable. Like it,
Mm.
breaking past those comfort zones, they're
Most
really,
likely won't happen.
yeah,
You
'cause-
might get to the
Mm.
cusp of it, but you're not going to actually break through if you're not,
Absolutely,
like you
yeah.
said, continuing to practice that. So it's a good point.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I had this conversation with a client yesterday, and she was literally, in this confusion about, I want to do this because she was talking about a major career change, and she's not like young, right? She's in her like
Mhm.
mid 40s, and she has been working in her industry for like, maybe 15 years or whatever,
Oh,
right?
geez.
And then she was talking about, I'm burned out. I really feel like I want to change, but at my age, I don't know if I can change. But the good thing was that, she knew what she wanted. So we were talking about maybe doing another degree, right, in order for her to have this transition. But she was like, oh, but I don't know, maybe they will not accept me. And I said, well, you don't get to reject yourself until they reject you.
Mm,
You
Beautiful.
know what I meant, right?
Yep.
Right. So let's give it a go. Like you can't sit at home and saying, "Oh, it's not gonna work out anyway." So what's the point of trying? They haven't rejected you yet, and you're already giving up on yourself. So I said, "Let's do this," right? So and I gave her some recommendations. It was a beautiful session that I did.
mm,
And she came to me at a great timing, right? Literally just a few days before the spring equinox.
Uh-huh.
right.
Perfect timing.
I was gonna say,
Perfect timing. Yeah.
well, and Letao, maybe you can speak from this in your own clinical experience, right? Is that like self rejection one of the foundational reasons maybe why we block our own manifestations, why we block our
Mm,
own expansion
yeah,
into
yeah,
bringing about the change that we want to do and bring in, like
mm,
if we don't feel internally worthy of it, it's going to be
yeah,
very
yeah.
difficult to let the external world
Correct.
kind of meet us there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So of course, I think it has a lot to do with w- w- how much we have been feeling validated by the people around us.
Mm,
And you can imagine if since a very young age that everyone tells you that they believe in you, you can do this, right? It's definitely easier for us
Yep.
to walk into the unknown, and because we feel like, well, of course, anybody who doesn't believe me really does not exist, But
mhm,
if we have been told that we can't do certain things or we're dreaming, okay, and we're unrealistic and we should just stay with what we already know, then naturally we don't have that validation from other people, and so we will have self-doubt. But there are also different types of people, like for example in Chinese I Ching studies, which I'm
Mhm.
very into these days. there are
What is it
there are
called, Letao?
I
I
Ching, I Ching, yeah.
Ching. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it's the ancient Chinese metaphysical study, basically. And
Wow.
it's a completely different system from Western astrology, but I find it fascinating. It's basically, dealing, I won't go into the details about
No,
this, right?
you can if you
Yeah.
want. We're interested. Yeah.
Uh, so it's basically we're looking at the five different elements in the world. In Chinese metaphysical studies, we believe there are five elements that form the world: the fire, the water, the metal, the wood, and the soil. Those five things form everything in this world, and including us. So when we're studying our own birthday, birth time, we're looking at how many elements are in there and what's the percentage of each element and what we need to do, which element is helping us or which element is too much in us,
Uh-huh.
right? And so in this study there's a thing about whether you are it's well, it sounds a little bit, prejudice, right? It's about the strong version and the weak version, but it does not mean the weak version is bad. Actually, a lot of successful people are the weak version, for example, of fire, and some people
Gotcha.
are the strong version of metal, right? The weak version just means that they need they need more support or validation from outside the world in order to make them successful. And but the weakness of the strong version is that these people are they believe in themselves so much that they're stubborn to the point that they might reject a lot of the things coming to them. Sometimes they need other people's input, right? So it's a little bit like
Right.
that. So I think, to answer the question that you just asked, why do we feel that we can't really believe in ourselves? I think that, is that your cat?
Yes, it
That's
is.
Luna.
Luna
Oh,
has made an
hello.
appearance.
Yeah, I saw a photo of you and Luna on your Instagram.
Yeah, she's making an
Mm.
appearance. She's
She's
interested.
interested in exactly what you're saying right now.
Oh, wow. So, by the way, in I Ching study, the cats, they belong to the wood element.
That's you know what's I did do I remember
Uh,
reading about the I Ching studies about a year or two ago, and I
uh,
think my own I understand you can have like multiple, but I know wood
eight.
was one
Yeah,
of
there
my
are
own.
eight. Yeah, yeah.
Wood was one of
Really?
the ones that for me, I remember reading that.
Let me have a look actually. So your birthday is, were you born 1980? Wait,
1995.
oh my God, you're young. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, he is.
Hey, I'm
That
coming on 30 this year. I'm getting old.
congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
1995. Oh my God. Okay, so December let me see. December the 29th. Yeah. Do you know what time you were born?
10:08 a.m.
Okay, it's perfect. Um, okay, let's have a look. You're the yang wood. So
Okay.
the
The
yin and the yang.
young
So the
wood, the
yang
yang.
wood, yeah, yang, yeah. So the wood, yang wood, the symbol of yang wood is a tree. It's a
Okay.
big tree. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Very
actually.
fitting.
Oh, let me see if you're the strong version or the weak version. Oh, the strong version. Strong version of yang wood. Yeah,
Strong.
big tree.
I'll take it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Great. Yeah. Awesome. So I know probably this doesn't make sense to you, but it's shit is gone. I should have saved it. It closed by itself. Anyway, yeah. So yeah. But Anthony, I'll check yours.
Okay.
Your birth 1985, right?
1985. Yep. At 5:59 a.m.
Okay, it's
July
July
26th.
26. Sorry, 5 what AM?
5:59.
Oh, 59. Okay.
Yep.
AM. Okay, let's see. July 26, 1985. So Anthony, you are the Yang fire. Okay,
That
so
does
so
not surprise me.
so the Yang fire's symbol is the sun. Uh,
Very fitting.
Yeah.
you know what? I think we three form a beautiful picture because I'm the Yang soil. So
Oh wow.
so the symbol of Yang soil is mountain. So now we have the mountain, we have the tree, we have the sun.
That's perfect. I was gonna
That's
say
all you
that's
need.
That's South Dakota.
Yeah.
yeah, it
That's
really
the
is.
trifecta right there.
That's exactly what we always
That's
talk about it.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't
That
make
was
this
funny.
stuff up.
Yeah. If we add someone else in, we just need a water in. Then there's a river, then that's even better. Yeah.
I was gonna
What?
say we need to find a fourth who is
Yep.
the river.
Have the pureness of the whole cycle and all the
Yeah.
elements, and I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm gonna
So
read into
this
some of that stuff because I've never heard of it before.
Yeah,
Really.
this is actually the whole thing about I Ching is you're forming a picture. So
Okay.
especially when you're seeing whether two people they get along with each other or they should get married, basically what you're looking at is all the 8 different elements that we're seeing actually in here, because everyone
Okay.
they have 8 different places you can put elements in, and you're seeing whether these two people form a beautiful picture.
So if
Um,
the picture doesn't look good, it's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. It's
In
like
a sense,
for example, young metal and the young wood is not a good combination because young metal is the symbol is an axe or
Okay.
weapon, right?
Yeah.
Oh
So
yeah, they're gonna cut me
Yeah, they're gonna
down.
be chopping you down.
correct, right? So the tree is afraid of that. The metal
Yeah.
come to the tree will be cut down. So that's usually not a good thing. So, it depends. And also, for example, the yang soil, which I am, is not very good with yin wood. Yang wood is great. The tree and the mountain is beautiful, but the yin wood is a little bit like ivy. So they're also
Oh,
plants, but they're ivy. They're twisty, And so you
yep.
can imagine a big mountain with big trees that they look nice.
Yeah.
But if a mountain is covered with ivies, probably it's not really nice. And so
No.
that also,
That'd take
yeah.
a lot
So
of ivy to cover a freaking mountain
I
too,
know, right?
Like
A lot of
that's not
vines,
that's
right?
too
Yeah.
much ivy.
Yeah, yeah. And so I Ching is kind of interesting, but you're painting a picture there and whether it's beautiful or not. Yeah.
Right. Well, it almost feels like it gives you kind of a map to navigate the world in a lot of ways, right? And it's very
Correct.
in
Yeah.
synchro. Where are you going, Luna?
Bye, Luna.
There she goes. It's very synchronized with how the flow of nature and how we operate, and like it kind of almost, I think, returns us to our roots and our own roles and our own purpose and the way that we go through the world. Because when when you
100%.
describe it as the tree, I'm like, yes, that feels like I feel that
That
in my
feels yeah,
I feel
yeah,
that
yeah,
within me,
Yeah.
right? That's the type of
Yeah.
energy I feel like I embody just in my
Yeah.
natural state of being,
yep.
right? So
Yeah.
I feel like coming into like awareness of these types of ideas, it very much puts you on a direct path.
So with
Mm,
that being said, you guys, not to cut in, sorry, but like, so you know how obviously we're tarot readers, and you're obviously a very well-known astrologer, and then this I Ching or I Ching and numeral. I mean, all these different ways to, like, let's say, gauge experience and energy and stuff.
mm, mm.
They do you think personally, both of you guys, do you think that they're maybe kind of one of the same in a sense? Like just maybe a different projection of it, or how does that feel with you
Coming
guys?
back to the same, like they're tapping into the same idea almost.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like obviously from the same source per se, but they're so just you talking about that is very profound. And you didn't even talk about it very much, but for what you said to me and what you said to
Mm,
Evan about that, like I can resonate with that 100%. And it's just really
yeah.
like
Yeah.
interesting how it goes in full circle with every other, type of belief
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
divination or whatever you want to call it, like it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really interesting to me, I guess.
It's about synchronicity really again, because Western astrology is about observing the movement of the major planets, right, in our solar
Okay.
system, and the I Ching is about observing the nature, right? Those different symbols. The yang fire is the sun. The yin wood is vines.
Okay.
The yang water is ocean. The yin soil is garden soil. The yang metal is an axe, right? Weapons, and the yin metal is jewelry. And so
Okay.
so the ancient Chinese people observed the world that they lived in, and they found certain relationships between different elements.
Yep.
And so the so-called, whatever that is happening in the sky, which is the Western astrology about the planet, and the
Mhm.
Chinese I Ching, which is about what is happening on the earth, right? The ocean, right? The mountains, the trees, things like that. At the end of the day,
Yep.
they are all synchronized. And
Mm,
that's why even though we were looking at different things, in I Ching, you don't talk about Jupiter, you don't talk about Saturn, but you talk about trees, you talk about
Yep.
mountains. But eventually they all come, they all work in a very synchronized way. Yeah.
right.
Nice.
And I think it does give almost a complete picture to where you don't always need to look to the sky per se. You can look in your own backyard and come in contact with the elements and nature and
Yeah.
see that same rhythm and see those
The same synchronicities,
same
and
synchronicities,
because
taking the words
I
out of my mouth.
because what I was kind of getting at with after your guys' explanation, but what I was getting at personally is like I think that there's an infinite amount of connection with all of
Mm,
these things in different ways that we're able to express that. Obviously,
mm,
maybe we haven't maybe came up with them or practice them. Them being like other ways to synchronize with different energies and alignments and how
mm.
things are going in reality. So it's really fascinating to me to hear this from you and hear this from you, but let alone then synchronize them together and then see how my
Mm.
projection is and how my energies are and what my thought processes and feelings are. It's like almost like powering up, being able to have these different abilities per se, as far as
Yeah.
knowing and even just understanding, or
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
so
think
when
that.
when
Oh,
we
go
know
ahead.
the yeah, I'm just saying, when we know all these the relationships between a lot of things, and between us and everything, and between things and things,
Yep.
uh I think naturally we find the rules there, we find the regularities there, and we know how to work with them. And then the rest is just how we work with them after the awareness.
Right.
Nice. I like
I
that.
was gonna
Yeah,
say
I like that a lot.
that's a
Yeah.
beautiful way to put it. Well, and then it
Yeah.
allows you, when you find out how to work with them, I think it makes everything in your life a lot easier, because we're all going to
It's a
be
better flow, probably.
right. Because I mean,
Mm,
we're all going to have to deal with the material hustle and bustle, and
mm,
having to go into life, and almost becoming disconnected, not disconnected per se, but it's not going to be in our conscious awareness all of the time per
yeah.
se, because we have to go out and have a job and make a living and do
Responsibility.
that,
It's different.
responsibilities
Different. Yeah.
in this world that isn't necessarily uh, built upon like that foundation per se.
Right,
I think a
right.
lot of the
Mm,
things we're accustomed to doing isn't always in um, alignment with these
mm,
ideas or with this
Yep.
natural flow. So it's very easy to forget. But I think if you
yeah,
make that
yeah.
the foundation internally, then everything you end up doing within this
Goes.
structure and
Yep.
in this system, it starts to align with that as well. And then the structure and system start to align with, and
Yep.
everything, it's kind of, there's like a domino effect in that once you get it as an internal foundation and
Yeah.
internal
Yeah,
awareness.
It's almost like you're
yeah, yeah.
finding the fine-tuned feng shui of everything. You're going with,
Mm,
like
Mm.
you said, it's a lot. It's a
mm,
lot.
yeah.
I was gonna say, well, for me, it relates back to tarot too, Letao, because tarot, and I feel like maybe I've told you this before. Tarot for me almost represents that same idea as like kind of a map for navigating the world. Like all the major arcana can represent different archetypal structures like within ourselves, right? And it represents
Mm,
different scenarios and relationships and how we go into our mindset with work and responsibility. And it's so it just kind of gives a better picture on how to live a life in alignment with nature, a life that is synchronized. And I think for me, that just creates a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment
Yeah.
going through
mm,
everyday life and going through this material world, when we can kind
yeah,
of have these almost like guides
yeah,
to
yeah.
navigate and move forward, knowing that this is always there and this is
Uh,
guiding us.
It's
If we,
reassuring.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It's comforting. It
mm,
very
is. It really
reassuring.
is.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's a very reassuring force. I think that's the right
Latal
word.
must have a very peaceful mind.
I was gonna say
Has to. You have to.
No, it depends on the day. Depends on the day.
depends on how the stars are aligning, I suppose. But
No,
that that's
yeah, literally, 'cause yesterday when I was talking to that client, I said, one thing that I learned about doing my work is, you have to be aware of whether you are in control of your mind on that day.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
like for example, Anthony, last time when we talked, right? Whatever
Yep.
happened between, within your family and whatever that is, sometimes when you are so, you know, what's the right word to describe it? Uh, Overwhelmed by our feelings and
Perfect
things like
word.
that, right? We don't have the capacity to do other things, because we're under so much this kind of negative influence, right? We
Yep.
can't focus and things like that. And literally, I there are occasions when I would reject a client because I'll just say, because I can't focus today,
Yep.
like I can't work today, book tomorrow, because there's something happening with my family or with my whatever, yeah. I can't do a great job for you, so let's do it tomorrow, right? So definitely, so I'm not always in peace. I
Well,
mean,
and
yeah,
I know, but that also just goes back to show you, Latal, the wisdom and the experience that you've had in your path and your journey, to know that you're able to step back and to be like, hey, I'm here being a guide and a healer and a helper, and like I'm not gonna give this help to somebody if I don't feel like I'm able to help myself in that moment, or if I'm able to focus, like you said, you know, and that's very profound in itself, to just to be able to step back and do that. So I commend you for that just in
Yeah.
itself, you know.
Well,
I mean,
Letao, something I'd love to hear your take on, and this is something we hear a lot about, is the idea of the wounded healer, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
doing a reading for myself. I just recently came up with, I'm trying to create like different tarot spreads to look at different um,
Mm,
ideas and
perceptions. Yep.
perceptions. And so I did one that's focused on like the shadow, right? And
mm,
looking, and I did one of
Yeah.
Tony today, and I did one for myself yesterday. And the card that I drew first to kind of, what is the my own shadow, like what is its face, what does it look like, how does it, like what the dominant energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I drew from the oracle of the mythic heroes to kind of almost get a story behind that. And I believe it was what is his name, Orpheus, the one who did the
Yep.
music.
Orpheus. Yep.
ah,
And it was
yeah,
about
yeah,
healing, right? And it
yeah,
was about
yeah,
the wounded healer, right?
yeah.
So, and that concept really resonates with me, because in a lot of ways, I very much feel, I'm starting a new therapy job, for example,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And it's like but still, there is also my own healing that I've had to go through, and
Yeah.
it's still going through. And it's like,
Mm,
you almost have to be able to do it within yourself to even
mm,
meet someone at a level to where they need to engage with healing, right?
mm, mm,
So I'd love to hear you talk about, that idea of the wounded healer, and like how,
How does that look like to you? Yeah.
yeah,
What is? Yeah.
mm. Orpheus probably is one of my favorite figures in Greek mythology. And when I was writing that chapter, um, I had a great time. Let's put it this way, right? Because I loved his stories and I deeply resonated with him. Uh, and I think he's the typical archetype of a therapist, of a counselor. Uh, uh, of someone who works in the helping professions. Uh,
right,
so because his music is so beautiful that it can even move rocks and trees, and to
Move
heal
mountains.
people's, remove mountains, right? That's his magic, right? But he suffered forever from the loss of his own wife because he couldn't trust Hades. He couldn't trust he suffered from this pain and the self-doubts, suspicion, fear of loss, and all these kind of things. And in the story, there are different versions of the myth. In some versions, saying that after he, failed to save Eurydice, he refused to marry again. But he was very talented and he was chased by a lot of women,
Oh
but
yeah, I imagine.
he remained, single to the point that eventually he was killed, actually by a group of jealous women. It's a little
What?
bit,
I
yeah,
didn't know
yeah,
that.
yeah. So they tore him apart, and his head and floated to an island in modern day Greece called Lesbos. And the myth says that some the islanders found his head, and buried his head on the island. This is one of the islands that I actually wanted to visit one day when I go to Greece again. But there's a reason why I haven't gone, because nowadays the Greek government put all the Middle Eastern refugees on Lesbos Island, so it's actually not very nice to visit. It's not like a beautiful touristy island.
Yeah.
There are a lot
Why would
of,
they do that? Why would they do that? Oh, that's wild. Yeah.
yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
Well, because because Lesbos is very, very close to the Middle East.
Oh,
Literally,
okay.
so if you look at the map, Lesbos, if you get on the boat, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, or 4 hours, and then you are already in Turkey. And then you go a
Oh,
little bit down, that's Lebanon, Syria, so
so it's almost like a buffer zone between Greece and the Middle East, kind of, for
correct,
them in a
yeah,
sense.
correct.
Yeah. Got
Yeah,
you.
yeah. I mean, of course, there are beaches there, but it's, half of the island is used for, to just put refugees, right?
That's too
Because,
bad.
yeah, it's very stupid because the Greek government doesn't want those people to
In the
come to
mainland.
the mainland Greece, right?
Yep.
But anyway, that's, it's neither here nor there. So the story was that, I really wanted to visit. So that's the Orpheus story, right? Coming back to the therapist image. And I also personally feel like if we have decided to go on this path to be a therapist or a counselor or any type of, even a social worker, to be honest, right? Any type of helping profession, or maybe a tarot reader, a spiritual therapist, or whatever. I think Orpheus is a story that we all carry within us. At the end of the day, I think being wounded ourselves is a precondition to understand the suffering of other people. Whatever suffering, because everyone's story is different. Maybe for you, it's about, your relationship with your father, and maybe for me, it's about, my
Just kind of hit it right on the head. Look at right away. You just got it. Like, instantly just calls him out. Like, that's awesome. I love it. Good job.
Yeah. So, but we can all apply that to different situations. Some people were abandoned when they were a child, parents divorced, and either it's both parents were fighting for them, but sometimes it's both parents didn't want them. So, so you can see, imagine, right, that the trauma that a child can go through, and when they grow into adulthood, either they will carry that wound, and which will affect their adult relationships as well. Fear of abandonment, jealousy, insecurity, whatever, right, they are, or they transform themselves into this amazing therapist who can transform their wound into the power to understand, to empathize, and to help other people. And I'm really proud of you because you are becoming a therapist very soon. Oh, by the way, are you gonna do therapy for adults or for children?
It'll be for children primarily.
For children.
I'll work with the families and check in with the families, but the actual therapy will be for the children.
For the kids, yep.
Yeah.
Kids. And when you say kids, what age range are you talking about?
It can be anywhere, really any age.
Adolescent, kindergarten, 5, 6 years old, all the way to
I see.
Yeah, all the way up to 18.
18, yep.
My experience is that actually the most difficult is actually teenagers. This is just my experience because I've done in my early days. I've done, when I was trained as a counselor, we did, a lot of what do you call them? Like a placement. We call them placement.
Yep.
It's a bit like
we have those here too. That's what I used to do for the first 10 years of my life, was work in placements like that as a therapist counselor. For teenagers. Yep.
Yeah, and I find that because they are. They have their own thoughts. Especially some of them are very, very stubborn, right, in their own way, and they have their own vision about how the life is treating me, but they're not mature enough, right, to really rationalize everything. I find it quite challenging, and probably I would say when I was a teenager, I was quite challenging myself.
Most definitely. I think we all were in some facet, some shape, for sure. I have 2 teenagers right now, and I know I was like them a lot. So
yeah. But congratulations. I think this is a very honorable profession, and not a lot of people can do it.
Oh, well, thank you.
Well, and what's really neat about it too, Letao, is that so with Sacred Vibes, one of the tools or the things that we'll be having at the store at the place is being able to have healers there, as far as like Reiki healers, massage therapist healers, tattoo artist healers, but also look at a clinical spiritual counselor is another great addition to the Sacred Vibes, to be able to reach out to the community and help people that just maybe need an ear or somebody to talk to. So it's beautiful how it's just kind of synchronizing, and he's stepping into his role because he's already a counselor, and in that aspect, he's been doing that for a long time. So like you said, I'm proud of him too. So
thank you.
It's amazing. Yeah. No matter where we are, we need this type of helping professionals. Even in the Greek story, the Golden Fleece, right? Jason and the Argonauts on his boat. Orpheus was on the boat
with him.
Orpheus. Yeah. So I thought, did I write about that? Yeah, I wrote about that part in the chapter, the Sirens. in
Yep.
Oracle of the Mythic Heroes, right? So Orpheus attended two amazing adventures. One is the Jason and the Argonauts, right, dealing with the sirens. The other one was which what was the other one that he was on?
Was he with Hercules or
Not with Hercules. Oh, sorry. No, so that was not
no?
Orpheus. Sorry, I mixed it up.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Odysseus, but it was
Odysseus,
not
yep.
Orpheus. Odysseus also his crew had to face sirens, but Orpheus was not there. Sorry about that. Yeah, but even with
Well,
the Jason
is
and the
that why they is
Argonauts.
that why they wrecked on the island then?
Sorry.
Is that why they wrecked on the island? Because they didn't have anybody there to
Well, I mean, he was pretty much shipwrecked a few times, to be honest. I mean,
yeah.
not just once. I mean, he
Yeah.
was he got trapped on the island, but he had a beautiful woman with him. And I think it was a water nymph whose name was Calypso. Oh yeah, Calypso.
Calypso,
It was a
yeah.
very funny story about Odysseus, right? So Calypso fell in love with him and they lived together on the island for 2 years. To be honest, I don't know what kind of shipwreck that would take 2 years to fix, to be honest, right? I think he
They
was
were taking their time.
Yeah, they were
yeah, right. He was really taking his time. And then Calypso even gave birth to a child, with
Oh
him. And then
geez.
eventually, yeah, and eventually, Odysseus was like, oh, by the way, I gotta go. So now the ship is
I'm a
fixed.
king and I have to get back
Yeah.
to my
My
kingdom.
wife,
Sorry.
yeah, well, he's
Yeah.
married. His wife is
Yep.
Penelope. So I said, okay,
As they
see,
were all trying to take over his kingdom. Yeah.
yeah, he's like, see you later, alligator. And Calypso was like, okay, don't go. How about this? I'm a water nymph. I have magic. I will make you eternally useful, right? I'll make you make you immortal if you stay with me. Forget about your wife, right? Just be with me. How does that sound? And Odysseus said no. So
Nope.
he
Well,
left. Yeah.
let's
But
wait then. Let's
yeah,
see how that feels.
but he had his fun and he I don't know if later, maybe he shipwrecked like on
Maybe you
purpose.
shipwrecked again for a couple years.
Yeah. Another 2 years. Oops,
Oh man.
the ship is leaking. Okay.
I have to go back to Troy for something. I'll be back, honey.
Oops. Yeah,
Yeah.
you never know, right?
Yes.
Sometimes Greek mythology can be so it's just funny, right, when you read these stories. Yeah.
I was gonna say they're no different than anybody today,
No.
man.
And
People don't really change.
that's the thing. What I love about the Greek mythology is not only is it just almost like reality television, but like also so much more esoteric and magical too. That back
Yeah.
in the day, that's how it was too. So you can feel just
Mm.
how their flow is, and like, oh yep, and then there was a cyclops, and then he dressed up as sheep, and then all these. It's beautiful. Because
Yeah.
those stories resonate with us so much. I think personally is because they're true, and
Mm.
we're so connected to them because they were true, and we can feel that internally and eternally.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
it's like
And
what you were saying, Letao, with the Orpheus. When I was
mm.
reading your bit on Orpheus and doing the reading, I'm like, wow, I really this dude is me. Like I get it, So
Yeah.
it's like there's when we connect with these different like mythological like characters and archetypes,
Mm.
it's like we
Mm.
see ourselves within them and we can understand their hardship or the wisdom that comes from it because they're no different
yeah,
than you or I.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like I think that's the beauty of those stories, the beauty of the myths, and why
Mm.
they
Mm.
do matter today. Because it's like how
Mm.
many I mean, I'd say the basis of how we learn and navigate this world, it is through stories. It's through
Mm.
storytelling. It's through
yes,
trying to
Yeah.
understand where people have come from before. And so when you can kind of have those myths to fall back on, it makes all
Mm.
of this so much more. I don't want to say easier. I don't think that's the right word, but there is more of
Yeah.
an assurance that
relatable and
it's
assurance, and yeah,
relatable.
you're
There's
able to connect and reflect back onto that, even if it was so much further away in time or what like you're able
Yeah.
to relate. Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah. And also, if you look at Orpheus, not only is he a healer, but also he's a musician. So
Mhm.
what I really realize about being a true therapist is that there has to be some type of creativity in you as well,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
this ability to associate other people's situation and other people's pain to your own experience needs a little bit of imagination in us. You have to
Yep.
be able to imagine what does that feel, right? What would that feel, right? And so I really feel that as a true therapist, you have to be a little bit imaginative and creative. And I also think that's all the good therapists I have met are creative in their own way.
Mm.
Right? And that the so-called empathy requires that sense of imagination and creativity in us. And because you guys write poetry, right? You're a poet, so naturally Orpheus is a poet. He sings his poetry
Yep.
basically. Well, he's
Mhm.
playing his lyre, and yeah. So I think I totally see this archetype in you.
Mm.
That's awesome,
That's,
bro.
that's very assuring, considering you're the one who wrote the book. From
Yeah.
what I'm reading from.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man.
But
Lucky
yeah,
you.
but I'm not very familiar with children's psychology because I've rarely done children's, especially you're talking about kids under 12 years old. I've almost none experience, so I don't
Right.
really know how that would feel. But you can tell me when you start the job.
Yeah.
I'd love to
Definitely.
hear from you about how to deal with children. Yeah, the youngest counseling that I've done was about 15, 16
Okay.
years old. That was it. Yeah, but I would say 99% of the counseling is with adults in my experience. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Well,
Because I
I've
realize
already.
that children don't like me.
No, that's not it, Letao.
Kids don't like me. Yeah.
I've had the thought already, like, integrating things like play or whatever, whatever it may
Yeah.
be, bringing in different things that get,
Creativity. Yep.
bring allowing, because it's like I think back to like my own like youth or the inner child, right? And really, it is about playfulness. It's about kind of, I'd say, spontaneity in a lot of ways, just wondrous. I'm kind of all over the place, and so it's like,
Yeah.
all right, you can kind of allow a child to be in their element almost,
Yeah.
and be,
Yeah.
and they feel safe
And then
in
they'll
that.
feel more comfortable.
Yeah, and then you can kind
talking.
of
Yep.
get down to the what you need to, in terms of counseling and therapy. You can kind of
Yeah.
do it in the setting of where, I was talking to one of the guys who's worked there for a long time, and he says, "Oh yeah, we'll pull out a deck of cards or a game of Monopoly, and we're playing for an hour, but we
Mm.
talk while we're playing,
Yep.
right? So it's like
Mm.
things like that, and so
You got to be able to get down and relate with
mhm.
the person that you're trying to help, so that they're able to open up
Yeah.
and feel
Yeah.
comfortable. Or they
Yeah,
might not say a whole lot.
right,
A-
exactly.
And the other challenge is after you successfully engage, when the
Mhm.
session finishes, you have to detach.
Yep.
That's also a part that a lot of counselors have difficulties with because they can't
That was,
let that go.
that
Yeah.
was my fault. Like that happened to me a lot. It was so hard. Like one of my mentors, he was like the living coordinator of the placement. But what he would tell me is every day you walk through the door, let the door shower you off, and you leave that here because you take that home with you. It's so hard to try to
Exactly.
manage.
Yeah.
You can't carry that
Yeah.
with you forever.
Yeah, especially some clients can, especially if they really feel, wow, you are helping me. They can grow a little bit dependent on you.
Yep.
And so they will want to text you, they will want to call you all the time. They will want you to hop online with them right away, because some clients can be a little bit needy.
Yep.
Especially if they think you are the only ear to them. Because some people they're quite lonely, they don't have anyone to talk to. And so slowly, not that they're doing that on purpose, but naturally, if you are the only person that they feel you are the angel saving them, and you
Yeah,
are
they
the
feel
only
safe.
person, right, listening to them, they will break that boundary and they will want to be with you all the time, calling you, whatever that is. And also as a counselor, what do we do? Sometimes we feel guilty of pushing them away. But if you really let them in, then they really drain your life. Because this is because you can't let a client walk into your private life, right? They are your client and they only see you during your working hours. So all these kind of things, I think as a therapist, when you Evan, when you work with, I think kids should be better, but sometimes I don't know if parents will grow a little bit dependent on the therapist, right?
Like, can you
So
help
that's
my child? Like you do so well with them, and like it's 3 a.m, but we need you.
yeah.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
sometimes literally, I mean, I've been asked like twice, just last year by two different clients. They, because they really enjoyed the session. They said, can we have coffee? This and that. And I had to reject them.
Yep.
And of course, you say it in a very nice way, right? This is just being professional. Because once you become friends with them, you can no longer be their therapist.
Yep.
And that's just what it is. However, if they're already friends, they want me to do therapy for them, that's okay. Because but not the other way around, So that's so the conflict of interest and all that. So it's quite
that's why when we established our first podcast together and we talked and stuff, like I wasn't, because I already knew about you before. Me and Evan had talked about you before I had initially been on the podcast, and I knew kind of your body of work and what you're about. And I was like, man, this guy seems exactly like somebody I would love just to talk to one-on-one, in that therapeutic way. But I also knew that if I wasn't able to establish that groundwork of being a friend, then I personally, and I know that you just said it yourself, but we wouldn't really want to engage on that level because we had that professionalism about you are my therapist, or you are in that aspect. So I knew that's really cool that you said that, because that is a key thing. You have to have those boundaries, or it gets a little distorted and things don't always get to be accomplished like they should,
And actually one of the clients actually she just never came back to me because she took it very personally, and because I think she had a huge misunderstanding, right? I mean, I think she thought I was very helpful and caring because I cared for her unconditionally, but no, I was doing my job. You know what I mean? Yeah, I did care about her, but as a professional, right? And so when she realized, oh, you don't want to have coffee with me, you don't want to hang out with me, also all that care was fake. No, it was not fake. I was doing my job. I'm not supposed to be your best friend. I'm your service provider. And I think she was also kind of like, she couldn't get over that, right? So she saw, which I think that it's maybe best that way. Because as a patient, if you have become very emotionally attached to your therapist, it's also quite dangerous. So I don't know, I'm sure kids will not do that, right?
Probably not as bad as far as trying to reach out per se, but I still can see them getting attached to Mr. McDermott over here.
It's very possible.
Yeah, just make sure that you have, especially, I don't know, we have in Hong Kong, we have a code of conduct for professional counselors, and usually I will just send that to the client where they can see, okay, this is not something that I reject, out of the blue. This is written on our code of conduct.
Makes sense.
It makes a lot. Well, I've worked in teaching Letao, and it's kind of the same deal. Like, you have, and same with like I was, coaching basketball, and so I'm working with kids, and like you have a level of connection with a student per se, and it's like, well, this is I'm going to give this kid respect and this, but it's like then they want to add me on social media and they want to do this. And I'm your teacher. I'm not your friend. I'm your basketball coach. I'm not your friend. And so it's like, thankfully, I feel I've been able to be in environments where those type of boundaries I've had to learn and put up, and like in terms of professional boundaries. So
absolutely,
which is good, and I think that does actually make the, like going into like therapy or something, it's going to make it more impactful when you do have that level of professionalism. Because I can't, say I were to come to you as a client and I didn't know you ahead of time, I can't, if I expect you to be my best friend, I'm going to be very let down. Right? That's that. I'm not. I'd be paying for a best friend, and I'm like, I only have a therapist.
You're supposed to see it in my way, my point.
Exactly. Then we become very personal. And actually, I've said this to a client, because she really wanted me to she wanted me to be supportive and look at the situation from her perspective, right? But as a counselor, part of my job is to offer her the other perspective. And she didn't like it. And literally I said to her, I said, well, if you need some just, yes, you're right, they were wrong, right? I support you, you did the right thing, they were assholes, right? I said, if you just wanted to hear that, you shouldn't come to a therapy, you should just speak to your best friend, because they will blindly support you, whatever happened, right? Even though you were wrong, they will tell you you are the right one. I said, sometimes I think for us, right, we also have to know what we really want to hear, what we're seeking. Sometimes I'm in that space too. Like, I'm in the position where I don't care about who's right, who's wrong, but I just want someone to support me, my perspective. And I'll go to my best friend. And now, I mean, before I start the story, I'll say, I need your support. This, I don't need the other perspective, right? So just support me, let me tell the story. And they will know what I want, right? Right.
Awesome.
So I think it's also our job to let the other person know what we're seeking before we tell the story. Because sometimes we tell the story, maybe they give us a response that can further trigger us.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, thankfully, him and I are at a point where he can tell me a story, but if I feel like I need to give him a little dose of accountability, I can do
Yeah.
that, and he's not going to get
Yeah.
triggered by it, right?
Yep.
So it is nice to have
Yeah.
connections like that where
Yeah.
I'll hold him accountable, he holds me accountable. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
nice to
It's a
build,
good yin yang.
even build friendships upon that level of, I don't go to him expecting to just be like, yeah, Evan, you're right, you did it.
No.
If anything, I expect
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
opposite because I know I'm
And
full
you
of
just want to
bullshit.
be
Yeah.
validated through that aspect rather than the other one. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
So,
Makes a lot of
100%.
sense.
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
good. Letao, do you think we could draw some cards for the times
Mm.
we're in? I don't know. I just feeling like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you, Letao, what do you think about, maybe an archetype for the spring equinox
yeah.
for just us three, as far as how it, we
Let's
just
pull
said
a card. Let's
Let's
pull a
do it.
card and see collectively, right? Because I can't really see
collectively.
other people, but just for three of us,
Yep.
right? For this spring equinox, wait a second.
The
Yeah.
sun, the soil, and the mountain.
That's right.
So for us, you guys say stop, and I will stop shuffling. Who wants to?
I'll let
Who
you do
wants
the
to?
honors.
Stop.
All right, there we go. Okay. So we got Paris. All right, indecision. Okay. So let me explain this a little bit. Yeah, well, I'm sure you have read this this chapter anyway. To me,
Yep.
right, the essence of this story about Paris indecision is basically telling us that there's no such choice is wrong choice. At the end of the day, whatever goddesses that you choose from Paris perspective, as long as you are ready for that journey, that's going to be the right journey for you. And I'll tell you why I say this. In the story, you know the story, right? The judgment of
Yeah,
Paris.
Paris and Helen, and yep.
Yeah, eventually he chose Aphrodite. So Aphrodite gave him Helen, but Helen was already married, right? All that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But there was no in the story, nobody actually said that was a wrong choice. Even eventually, when Troy was attacked and demolished by the Greek army, Paris he died himself as well. But there was no account saying, "Oh, Paris regretted that." He thought, "Oh, I should have chosen, for example, Athena, or I should have chosen Hera." Maybe when he died, he felt it was worth it, right? Because he was able to spend 10 years with Helen. So even though he was, he died, but it was worth it, right? Helen was the most beautiful woman in the world. But we don't know. We don't know whether he thought it was worth it or not worth it. And nobody gave any comment about that. To me, I think the Paris story is all about you never know. Even if he had chosen, let's say, Hera or Athena, maybe there could have also been a war. Also, maybe millions of people would die. You never know. So the most important thing is not about which goddess you choose, but the most important thing is, are you responsible for that choice? If
I like
Paris,
that.
if Paris says, I'm gonna choose Aphrodite and I just want to be with Helen, and it's okay that I die when I'm young, right? That's a conscious choice. Then good, that's the right choice for you. And I really think this is the message from this card. And so that's why it says indecision, right? The reason why we're indecisive because we keep thinking what is the right choice. But the right choice, everything is the right choice as long as you are ready for that. You can be responsible for that.
That's something we've talked a lot about recently. That idea.
We just did
Literally today.
Same exact thing. Literally what you've been speaking on, Letao. We kind of just talked verbatim all of that today. It's really odd.
No, seriously. Well, and it kind of gets back to me, like with the idea I've been resonating a lot with the idea of like the Justice card in tarot,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah. Yeah.
almost just the karmic impact of choice. And we had the Seven of Cups come up
Hmm.
earlier today too, and like
Yeah. Yeah.
it feels like there's just so many, at least for me personally, I know for him personally too, there's a lot of choices to be made
Yeah.
right now. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
decisions, a lot of action
Mm.
that needs to come from the choices that we do make. And
Yeah. Yeah.
we were talking earlier that I think regardless of what we end up doing, we'll end up doing it, and that
Yep.
we'll create
Yeah.
the manifestation from that choice and go with it and flow with it. And therefore,
It's the right choice
what,
then,
as long
really.
as we're being guided by our
Yeah.
moral compass and we're staying true to who we are, is
Yeah.
there
Yeah. Yeah.
really a wrong choice in how we're approaching things? I mean, with the therapy job, for example, it's funny because I got another full-time job offer at
Mm.
the school I've been working at.
Mm.
And I was like, well, is there a right or a wrong choice? And I did in my mind, I was trying to originally thinking of it in that way. And I realized whichever one I do, I'll end up doing it. And it'll, whatever comes from it will be the result of the choice. And maybe there isn't a right
Yeah.
or wrong per se, you know?
Mm.
And ultimately I decided based on, well, if I stay with the school, there's going to be more what ifs and I'll have more questions after the fact. So I want to
Mm.
dive into a little bit more what's unknown and what feels aligned. And so that's why I'm
Mm.
making that choice. But both of them have their own paths, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, well,
Yeah. Yeah.
How does that resonate with you, Letao, as far as indecision and kind of your area and your boundaries, your perceptions and things like for you
Mm.
personally?
Well, for me, right, it's a little
Yep.
bit like, we all have things that we wish we had. For
Yep.
example, I would look at someone else and think, wow, I never had that stability, or I never had that guarantee. But the reason why I don't have that now is a natural consequence of my previous choice. For example, I choose to do what I do now, and that is why I have these benefits and I don't have those.
Yep.
And that's just, and this is about that, right? I mean, but if
Yeah.
you ask me, okay, you want that, right? So if you could go back in time, would you have chosen a different path? Well, the answer is no.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, this is after the pros and cons or weighing everything, that this is what you will choose. And naturally, that is not supposed to be a part of your life.
No.
And and so this is when I made peace with myself about, okay, I can't have that. Or at least I can't have that now. Or it's because of a conscious choice that I made, and I'm responsible for it. And I need to be okay with not having that.
right.
Yeah,
Well, that's a
it's
beautiful way
just
to
what
look
it
at
is.
it.
Yeah, we can't have everything. Just
No.
some people, right, very lucky, they can have everything. I don't deny that there are people who can have everything, or at least they can have everything they want. But that, I really think that's very, very rare. Not, yeah.
But I
Right.
So,
also think though, Latala, if there's some people like that they have everything that they want per se, I think that other fields or other areas in their life are lacking because they have so much. They're
right.
able to have so much that just the simple pleasures and experiences in life don't mean as much to them because the spread is huge for them. So it's like,
Yeah, yeah,
sure, I have every kind of delicacy in the world, right? But do you really value just one of them?
yeah, yeah. And not just materialistic things, right? Like, for example, some people, they're very blessed with their family, right?
Yep.
They have a great family relationship. Everyone loves each other. There was no one difficult, right? They always, get along with each other. And that's something that maybe they
That
didn't even ask for, but they just have that, right?
that
And
resonates with you too. I know that it does, as far as your choices and the
yeah.
projection on what was expected for you, and then how you actually stepped into who you are, and knowing that
Mm,
choice maybe wasn't the best idea in your family's minds, but yet it was the
mm,
best idea for you.
yeah, yeah.
Obviously, or it wouldn't be happening.
Yeah, and that's just what it is.
Yep,
I
and that
think,
I was gonna. That's our thing. It is what it is, Latau. It is what it
yeah,
is.
yeah, there's no need to question why. I mean, there's no why.
Yep.
We, yeah. This is just what it is. And we, as long as we find our but I think the most important thing is we can have one or two or three, it doesn't have to be a lot, people that we feel that we can really connect with and we can really trust. And I think that's more than enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well,
Either
I
either
agree.
that,
I was gonna
either
say, I
that comes
agree
from your
completely,
family or a
Letao.
friend. Yeah. It's not,
Well,
yeah. I actually don't have a lot of friends, to be honest, because
Well, that's what we are creating right now. Personally,
yeah,
is the
yeah,
like we would like to say it with the natives, like our tribe. I mean,
tribe,
I
yeah,
really
yeah,
am trying to collectively create brothers throughout the world, even if it's just in South Dakota, but also with Letao,
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
what
yeah.
we're putting out here is I would directly want to correlate the things that we're going to be doing in Sacred Vibes with the work that you do, and get that out
Mm,
there to everybody so that they know
mm,
about it, they hear about it,
yeah,
we're
yeah,
showing them so that they can spark interest and just have curiosity and all that. That's why we
yeah,
connect,
yeah.
I think, personally. So it's beautiful.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well, hopefully, at some point, not too far away. Yeah, I would really love to visit you guys in South
absolutely.
Dakota. Yeah, yeah. Because
Well,
you know,
Our doors are open for any time.
yeah,
it's
yeah,
obvious
yeah.
this we talk about it and it's going to happen. Letao, it
Mm,
will. And
yeah,
if it's
yeah, yeah,
even us coming there or meeting in the middle type of thing, I mean, the
yeah.
possibilities are endless, and they're open too. I mean, on our end anyways, and I'm pretty sure that they're open on yours as far as what comes up, and if it's available, or if things just align like they do, then they align like they do. So
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. I haven't been to the States for a long time. Last time was 2022. Oh, 3 years already. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Wow.
So maybe it's time to visit.
I think so.
I
Yeah.
think so.
I think
Yeah.
so. Do you think we could draw another card on what it is that we are creating and building here as like in sense of because this is kind of like a trio in a
Yeah,
way,
with the trifecta, of course it
the
is. Yeah. What?
trifecta. So
Let
what
me
is that?
actually let me what you're creating, okay? Let me pull some cards from Lenormand. Have you heard of Lenormand card?
I don't believe so. No.
Norman.
Okay, that's it.
Have you
All
used them
right.
in your videos?
Yes, yes, but
Okay, I've
Okay.
been
Well,
only
familiar
yeah.
with them from the video then, but
yeah, I've only used them in the videos for the 12 zodiac signs
Yep.
video.
okay.
Probably
We know.
not the bigger card yet, but let's see. What are you guys creating? Okay.
What are we creating?
Oh, you creating? Okay. We get a lot of nature. Okay, so the first card is ship.
A vessel.
Okay, and the second card is mountain.
The mountains come back into the picture.
South Dakota.
You see?
Yes.
Literally, how do you get?
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, wow.
yeah. All right, so see, you guys are with the mountains now, right? So this is about your community.
Well,
Okay.
we live right on the river too, so we have the
Yeah.
water
The
right here.
water, right? The water and the mountain, right?
Yep.
It's funny, like in Lenormand reading, the ship is usually in a figurative way. This is talking about things that could also be related to foreign things. So you are creating your community, but I also feel that this is about you also trying to get in touch with things or people far away from you. In Lenormand, reading this card is about foreign trade, right? International commerce, things like that. But in your question, I think this is related to people or things overseas who are far away from you.
See, it's directly talking about us.
Well,
All
Yeah,
three
in a
of
way,
us.
this is camaraderie, of
yeah,
Yes.
international. Yeah, that's beautiful.
yeah, yeah. Let's get one more. Yeah, this time, right? Evan, you see stop? No, stop shuffling.
Stop.
Okay. Okay. We got a man. Okay. So now this is about we just talked
I
about this,
think
the
we are
brother.
men.
Yeah, the brotherhood. Okay, so we got the male archetype, which is called animus. So that's the masculine
My
energy in
ears are
this
ringing right now.
deck, right? So also you can see the cards. Lenormand has different colors cards, right? So the colors are all different in
Okay, yeah.
color. But all
They
these
look
three
very
cards that
beautiful,
we
actually.
put out, they are green, kind of greenish, right? These cards that
That's
we
very
just
fitting. We were talking
Yeah,
about green earlier today too. That's wild.
And it's in America, it's St. Patrick's Day. Well, maybe all over, I don't know, but so we gotta
yeah,
wear
yeah, yeah,
green.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
we're
yeah,
embodying
yeah.
green.
Yeah. No, I think you guys are you're working on your project, right? The
Yep.
yeah. And I look forward to seeing that. Um Perhaps maybe I don't know if you guys will ever do any type of workshops.
Oh yeah,
Where
Well,
we've
that
talked a lot about
most
that
definitely.
actually.
That's where.
yeah.
So one of the things that I really wanted to connect with you with too is getting like a workshop kind of retreat put together with different
Yeah, yeah,
people throughout.
yeah.
Like our, I don't
Our
want to say
circle
our
or
circle, our genre,
Yeah, 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 of course. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
inviting them and letting them know, like, I'm not saying it's all like inclusive or it's just like a secret club or nothing, but like we're not just inviting George off the
Secret
street,
club.
yeah, no, yeah, we're literally creating something with the greater energies of our time, of our
Uh-huh.
circle, and that's what we kind of
Uh-huh.
want to do.
well,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I
I would love to attend actually. Yeah. So if you guys, well, depending on the timing, hopefully,
What
I
kind?
will try to make it work. If you guys have a retreat, for
Yep.
example,
Well,
somewhere,
imagine,
and
Letao, if we had you and Paul Check and David Icke and me and Evan and Russell Brandt and just random people, not random, but people that like necessarily wouldn't always want to hang out together. But
uh,
imagine the conversations and the things that we could talk about and unpack and figure out and just help. I mean, it's wild.
actually, you know what? I think Paul would, he organizes his workshop. I mean, he is really high up there, I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
so he's like a god. So,
yep.
probably I would say you guys should join his workshop in California. If
No, we need
there's,
to invite him to ours,
Well,
Letao.
I've actually
uh,
been wanting to go to one of his
But
too.
no, I agree, because when we first met, Evan said he had one kind of mentor idol, like a guy that
yeah,
he looked up to, and it was Paul
yeah,
Check, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah,
he went
yeah.
on to say later on through our friendship, he said, out of all the people I've had on my podcast, I would
Uh,
rather have you, Anthony. And I was just like, geez, man, like all the people that you have, like you can't compare, like feeling very selfish, like you can't compare me to a Letao Wang or a Paul Check or a
no,
Tommy John, or
no.
like you can't do that to me, bro. Like, but it was just beautiful. So that's what gave me the idea
Yeah.
of getting all of us together. And I'm not saying tomorrow, but just having that idea and manifesting and putting it out there in the ether, that's what we do. Just imagine what we can unlock and how we can connect and what we can grow.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, it's beautiful. I understand he does
yeah,
do
yeah.
workshops out there and stuff, but this would be something more
Mm.
personalized to the masters of our own projections.
Yeah, 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 of course, yeah. But definitely, I would say before that, if you are interested, you should join Paul Chek's workshop once, all right? His retreat. I actually know a lot of his practitioners. So there are a few
Okay.
practitioners working under him, and some of them
Yep.
actually are my clients.
Oh
So
wow.
they knew me
Only
through Paul
fitting.
Chek.
It's only fitting, Letao.
Yeah, yeah.
I've had
So
quite a few of Paul's who are certified through the Czech Institute
Yep.
on the
correct, right?
podcast.
Yeah,
Probably
yeah, yeah,
five or
yeah,
six of them at this point,
Yep.
and it's
yeah,
very
yeah.
every single one of them is so in
In
tune,
tune. I was just gonna
in
say in
tune
tune.
Into
with
Yep.
yeah,
who
yeah.
they
They
are and
they
what
all
they're
have
practicing.
their own strengths because they all do different things. Some of them are a little bit more like for example, a movement coach, right? Body
Yep.
movement. Some of them are more on the spiritual side. And there are
Right.
also there was one guy who was I think he was like a chiropractor or something. Yeah. So all
Was that
different kind of things that they do.
was that Tai
Yeah.
Chi guy? Was he part of that? Do you know?
I'm not sure actually.
Evan had a podcast with
Mm,
this really cool Tai Chi guy. Like but it
okay.
just he would fit perfectly in our circle of like
Yeah,
throwing
yeah,
ideas off each other and talking, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and
Gets me
yeah.
excited.
I
Sorry.
think what part of the foundational, like if we go down to like the why of the type of work that we want to do and the connections of bringing together, because like with like a podcast like this, for example, we're already bridging connection, we're bringing people together, we're sharing
Yep.
ideas. I think
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, one of the things, and like you were kind of even talking about, like I feel like what we need is like tribe and community and people to come together and just connect on that deeper
Mm,
level. And so if you bring
yeah,
in
yeah,
10 to 12 different people who are a master in their own discipline, everybody
yeah,
shares with one another what they
yeah.
what they're learning, what they're growing with and teaching, and we're experiencing. It's almost like you go through different rites of passage through different experiences, and so it's like kind of creating almost a large ceremony through a
Yeah.
retreat is something we'd love to do in the future. And
Yeah.
I actually was going to attend one of Paul's mandala workshops, but I couldn't end up doing it. Like I had it all planned out, and it fell through.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
sad. I'm sad I didn't end up getting to go.
Yeah,
But
you will have you definitely have more. Yeah. And uh I'm also thinking, if I make a big trip to the States, I'd better combine a lot of these things together, right? For
mhm.
example, definitely I want to make a stop because to see Paul. I think he lives in San Diego, somewhere
Yep, right
near
outside San Diego. Yep.
San Diego, right? Yeah. So I wanna do that. And of course I want to see my publisher in Portland.
Yep.
Um I don't know if Llewellyn will take me in, but let's see, right? If I
Well,
got a
I think
contract from Llewellyn.
Letao, I think that honestly, you submitting that manuscript in, that's already solidifying what's going to happen. That's just kind of how I'm feeling right now. Honestly,
I
I
don't know.
don't think that you're somebody that gets looked away from.
I
That's from
yeah,
my
but
own personal experience. So
to be honest, it's really about timing. I really believe it's timing, and so you have to work
everything's
with
all
it,
about timing. It's all about
right?
the timing,
And
timing.
timing, and also who is reading your manuscript. If
Yep.
you have the right person reading it, they love you, you're in.
Yep.
You're very unlucky, you have the wrong person reading a manuscript, they will just scrap it, right? And so it cannot happen. But anyway, my point is I want to combine all these things together. And so many people have been telling me about South Dakota, and I would love to see um you know your state. And I
Oh, we'd
you
be honored to have you
yeah,
here, regardless
yeah.
of the circumstances.
Yeah.
Any time, any place, whenever you're
Oh,
feeling compelled, or if things
yeah.
happen to line up like
Yeah.
that, then
We'll
it'd
we'll
be
shift
beautiful.
we'll
Actually,
shift our entire schedules to if you're if
Oh, literally,
oh yeah.
we will
I
shift
really
all of South
appreciated
Dakota's
it.
schedules for you.
Yep.
What's the town that you guys live in South Dakota?
Chamberlain, Chamberlain,
Chamberlain.
Lain,
Yep. South
L
Dakota.
South
A.
Dakota.
Okay.
And we're about probably 2 to 3 hours from like
Black
the
Hills
Black
and the
Hills and
Badlands, and
the main, yeah. So
we're in the middle of the state, right on the Missouri River.
right on
Like,
the water.
we have
Yeah.
access to everything around us. So
It's a good
I
middle
found
ground.
a place called the PF. Is that close to
Pierre,
that?
yep, Pierre is our capital. That's about 70 minutes, 75 miles away from Chamberlain.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
I was
Chamberlain.
gonna say
Okay.
Pierre would probably be if you ever end up flying here, you'd probably end up flying into Pierre or Sioux
Well, Sioux
Falls
Falls, but
or
that's it.
Rapid City.
But if you want, the easiest way
Mm,
to look it up is if you look up
mm,
Dignity, South
mm.
Dakota, you'll see
Ah,
the one. You'll see.
I found it. I found it. Yeah, it's
Yep,
right next to the river. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I found
that's
it.
what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
where we
okay.
live.
I see. I see. Oh, okay. Interesting. Oh, okay. So it's a southern part, right? South part of South Dakota.
Yeah,
A little
so
bit
yeah, more
In
toward
of
the
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 south. Yeah.
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 southern middle part. Yep,
Sounds the middle part. Yeah.
yep,
Near Crow Creek. Crow
yep.
Creek?
That's one of the
Yeah.
reservations for the tribes.
Okay.
For Yep.
Okay. Oh, nice. Interesting. What's
My wife is actually enrolled in the Lower
oh,
Brule Sioux tribe
oh,
right next to Crow Creek. It's called,
oh,
yeah, I'll just Kuichash Oyate in Lakota. That's how you say their tribe, but that's the tribe that they're a
uh-huh.
part of. So
Yeah.
yep, there's Native
Cool.
American tribes that we have to go visit. And there's so many things to do here because we've already done a lot of them. To show you, it'd be
Mhm.
so awesome and an honor to do so. And not just you,
Oh,
but imagine having a retreat at the Badlands and then having a workshop there. I mean, in such a sacred place, and just it'd be beautiful.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
it'll
Awesome.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Let's plan something maybe next year or something. Yeah.
Yes,
I'd love it.
yes.
I'd love it. I was
Yeah,
gonna say, just let us know when
yeah.
you want to come on out, and
Yeah,
we'll be
yeah.
ready. We're always ready.
Well,
And
by
Awesome,
next
awesome.
time next year, my abundance will be so much from the business I'm starting. I'll just bring you out here myself. I won't let you wait. I will just be like, no, I'm paying for all of it. I mean, come on, whatever you need,
Nah,
I
nah,
got this. I
no,
got
no,
this.
but I do want to because I know you guys are planning some right, your community and things like that.
Yep.
I was think definitely we should do something. Yeah.
for
Oh
sure,
yes, yeah.
I was gonna
It's
say,
only
Mm,
going to elevate our
yeah.
energies by
Mm,
continuing to work with you. That it's only right that we
yeah.
keep doing this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
beautiful.
Awesome, awesome.
Well, awesome, Letao. I know we're at right about my alarm just went off.
Yep.
So we don't want to hold you too much longer. But as always, man, I love getting to hop on here with you and just chat. And we were even talking before. Like sometimes when I do a podcast, I feel like I really need to prepare, or I need to
Yeah.
like
Topic
you
or
know.
something, you know.
But
Yeah.
I know with you, we have just such a good rapport. It's like we'll hop on there and it's gonna flow and it's gonna be magical, and we don't, you know.
He's a brother,
Yeah.
man. Like
Exactly.
it's easy
So-
to talk
Yeah,
to him
yeah.
because we respect what he's saying. He respects what we're saying, so it's a good flow.
It's
Yeah.
always a beautiful
Yeah.
like time just to get on here and converse and chat and see where we end up. And
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Likewise. Yeah. I haven't, I've only done podcasts 3 times with the same host, with 2 different people. One is you guys, the other one is Paul Jack. I've done 3
Yeah,
podcasts.
see,
Look at
and
that.
that's the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
we can't
yeah,
make this
yeah.
up
I love
now.
it.
It's just we're speaking facts here, man. We're speaking facts.
Yeah. So I
Honor
just
you.
actually I just
Yeah.
I just did my third podcast with Paul Jack about a month, 2 weeks ago. So probably I would assume it's going to be released in about a month or a month and a half time. So I'll keep you guys
Definitely
posted.
will be looking
Yeah.
for
I
it.
was gonna say
It was funny. I got to tell you, Letao, real quick. So I was, my kids, you know, they're kids, teenagers, whatever. They're kind of stuck in the things they are. But they had, I don't know where they seen it, but they seen you on the BBC the time, just not too long ago. And they're like, Dad, you know him. I'm like, yeah, I know Letao. They're like,
yeah.
you how? Well, they were just so confused and shocked. I'm like, yeah, Letao is an amazing guy. Like that's the one that I had my session with, and we've done a few podcasts, and they were just so flabbergasted. It was so cool. You are a celebrity in my children's eyes. So thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
And I gotta say, I saw your clip. It was funny because I saw you put up the NECN one, and that was the news station I grew up watching as a kid. And I'm like, look at Letao's on
Letau's
NECN.
on your.
He's on NECN.
Yeah.
Whoa, wait a minute.
Wait. But that's for that's the East Coast.
Yeah, that's where I grew up.
That's where he grew up at.
I didn't grow up in South Dakota.
No.
I actually grew up about an hour outside of Boston. And so I used to watch that as a kid.
That was 2 years
So
ago.
now-
That was 2023.
23.
I think it was the
November.
start of yeah.
Yep.
I think you were
November,
talking about going into 2024 and
Yep.
everything.
Correct.
And I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm like,
That was a
yeah.
good one. I watched that one too.
I'm like, holy smokes,
Yeah.
he's on. That's the channel I grew up watching.
Yeah.
So
You're on my local channel. Like,
that was my first TV interview with a US TV station. I was so nervous. My God.
that was your first one.
That was my first one, yeah, because I mean and also it was like 1 a.m. Hong Kong time.
Oh,
Because
geez.
of the time gap, right?
Letao, we were talking about that. You're like, I wonder what time it is for him, because if they're running it, it's like, wow, that's some dedication and commitment.
Well, either it was 12:30 a.m. or 1 a.m. I was so like, it was just not a good time for me, and I was thinking, okay, I cannot look shit on TV, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, you did it. You look great, actually. You were good. You did great.
I was just so confused, and I was nervous, but also I was sleepy, and I was. It was just a mix of things, right? And then, yeah, and the TV people were like, you're gonna be on in 2 minutes. Are you ready? I'm like, okay.
All right.
What am I gonna do? I forgot how to speak English.
Oh man, hold on one sec.
Start speaking in Chinese or something.
Weird,
Oh, that's great.
That's awesome.
I was gonna say no, it was good. Didn't see any nerves or anything, but it was nice.
Thank you.
It was funny to just get that like almost full circle moment.
Nostalgia, like, or not, but it's like surreal, I should say. Like, what?
Yeah. Like NECN.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
funny, right? Yeah. Well, I did another one with a Portland local TV station. I think it's called it's owned by ABC Katu TV. I don't know if you have heard of it.
Okay.
KATU. It's Portland local. Yeah. That the more I do, the more I'm used to it, and I'm less nervous. But the first one was so nerve-wracking. Oh God.
It's probably a whole different format than hopping on a podcast, I'd imagine, because you got like 2 minutes to give the deal. Here's
what you're presenting.
Right?
Here's what you're talking about.
Because it's all live TV, right? Podcast you can edit later, right? Oh, I stuttered, or let's not show that part. Live TV, this is what it is, right? You stutter, you're done.
Yep.
You're done. Yeah. Yeah, and
I
the
love
the
it.
TV station people, they also have their own, because usually after my section, so the news will continue, but I will still be able to talk to the people in the background, right? And so they will tell me that, like, we think you did great, or whatever. So they will give you a little bit feedback. And
Mm,
so yeah, the more I do it, the more I feel like, okay, it's easier, right?
okay.
Otherwise, it's just literally that the 2024 BBC one, because it was on air in UK as well.
Yep.
And one friend of mine literally saw me on live TV, and she was like,
That's so awesome.
like, what?
Wait a second. That's Letao. I know.
So what's going on? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And
that's so
probably I
awesome.
look, I looked like this,
Well,
on
you need to
TV.
continue to keep being on there because I have a strong feeling that you'll
Uh,
continue to be presenting different things and
Hopefully,
different
yeah, hopefully.
energies for the
Yeah,
years to come
so
for sure.
so far they have liked me. So let's see. Yeah.
Well,
Hard not to.
and it's a good way to get like the astrology information and this type of information to people
Mm.
who maybe aren't engaging in like a podcast like this, or they watch the news to watch the news, but you give them a little dose of astrology, and it's
Then
like,
they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I need more of that."
yeah,
Who was
Yeah,
that
yeah,
guy again?
%.
Okay, I
Yeah.
need to go search. Yep, that's a
Yeah,
beautiful way.
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway, yeah.
awesome, Letao. I mean, I'll let you go. I know you have a client soon, and want to give you a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
prep time before then, and so.
Mm.
But I'll have this out in the next couple days and share it out and put it up on
Thank you so
Instagram.
much. Yeah. It's
Just
always
get
a
it out.
pleasure to see you guys, and always have a great time. And so thank you so much for contact me and help, and do willing to do this together. Yeah, let's definitely do this again.
I
Most
was gonna say
definitely,
we were
Letao.
talking. We're like, maybe at the start of every new like season or something, it's like a good time to
Yeah, yeah.
come on and chat. So around like the summertime, once we're getting into the summer
Absolutely,
equinox,
yeah.
summer
Oh,
solstice, not
summer
equinox,
solstice. Yep.
Solstice,
summer
solstice,
solstice
yeah. Yeah,
Solstice. Yep.
yeah.
around then. But
Yeah.
I was thinking too, Letao, I would love. I know Anthony had a session with you. I'd love to book one for myself too, just to be able to chat one on one and go into that realm. I feel like it'd be very beneficial. So I'll send you a message on
Anytime,
that. But I'd
anytime,
love to,
anytime. Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
all
Hope you
right.
guys have a wonderful, what's day today? This Tuesday. Tuesday here,
Well,
Monday for you guys, right?
Monday night for us. Yep.
I was
Monday
gonna
for,
say
yeah.
a Monday night for us, so we'll
Yeah.
probably be
Um,
going to bed. We'll
Well, yeah.
we'll integrate after the podcast and have our own
yeah.
conversations, but then it'll be
Yeah,
bedtime
yeah.
and a new day tomorrow.
Yep.
So
Yeah, yeah. Have a great and productive week ahead. Yeah.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
Letao.
it,
We
Yeah.
Letao.
appreciate you so much, man.
Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.
Yep.
All
See
Bye.
you
right,
later,
see you,
man.
Letao.
Bye. Bye.